Petey? Petey? You sold my dead bird to a blind kid? Lloyd, what do you... Petey didn't even have a head.
Harry, I took care of it.
Pretty bird. Yeah, can you say pretty bird? Pretty bird. Yes, pretty bird. Pretty bird. Polly, want a cracker?
Well, this is a kind of a fun little episode. I've been looking forward to this. I'm here with Brady Bluhm. You might know him better as Billy Enforcey, the blind kid from Dumb and Dumber. Indeed. And dude, it's a pleasure to be here with you, man.
It's great to be here with you too.
You're all grown up now.
That happens, you know. I think it's been 25 years since we filmed.
That's kind of crazy to think
Dumb and
about, that it's been that long.
Right? Yeah.
I'll never forget when I saw Dumb and Dumber, because I think it's probably, I mean, it's got to be the all-time greatest comedy. I think it is. And I remember it's the only movie I ever literally fell out of my seat laughing. I was laughing so hard when I went and saw it at the
What scene was that?
Oh, man, I don't remember that. But I literally remember it was at Century 16 in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
I literally remember falling on the ground. I was laughing so hard I had to get up and get back in my seat. But just such a good movie. Did you know when you were... you know, when you were filming and things, did you know it was going to be this huge comedy hit like it became, or did you have any ideas?
That it became and is such a cult classic. I don't know if that's I don't think that's predictable, right? Like the level of success that Dumb and Dumber had. So in that way, no. When I was auditioning, I didn't even know Jim Carrey was going to be in it. Like at my audition, even at the callback, once I got the role, my mom read the script on a flight, and at the time she didn't know that it was going to be Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels, and she was still laughing out loud reading the script because the script itself was so good in that regard. So yeah, I didn't know, but at the time too, Jim Carrey was starting to really skyrocket, right? With the success of Ace Ventura, and The Mask had just come out that same year that we filmed. And so Jim Carrey was an absolute icon to me, right? It was just this, the idol worship kind of guy, because I loved those movies. And so once I found out it was Jim Carrey, I was beyond thrilled. But yeah,
well, it's funny that your mom was reading the script and she had a good, because you grew up LDS.
Yeah.
And so a lot of, Mormon parents might have read that and thought it was a little bit too racy or whatever. I mean, there's some jokes in there they definitely take pretty far, but that's pretty lucky to have a mom that thought that was humorous, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. And we came from a family where Simpsons was a regular occurrence in our household, which I knew. I had friends who weren't allowed to watch Simpsons, right?
Right.
But we were. So there was a lot of humor. There's always been a lot of humor in our household. And so there's four boys and one girl of my siblings, right? And so having three brothers like that, we're always trying to top each other and always ragging on each other.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same in my family. I think it's important to be able to have that kind of sense of humor inside of a family. We were playing basically Cards Against Humanity around Christmas time this year, and I had to take a video because every one of us was crying. We were laughing so hard, so the way the cards came together. And I can appreciate. I loved going to my friends' houses when I was younger, where there was comedy or the humor in the house, because it's just inviting. It was just fun to be there, as opposed to when it's all serious all the time and you're afraid to say anything wrong or whatever else.
Absolutely, yeah. And so I can say thank you to my mom and my dad for keeping that alive and allowing us to just explore our sense of humor in that way too. And
so how did you get into being a child actor? Was that something your parents pushed, or is that something that you just said, hey, Mom and Dad, I want to do this, and they kind of helped you get into it? How does that happen?
So my oldest brother, Brandon, started acting before I did. And he was interested in doing it and asked my parents to get him into it. And so he went to an acting class in LA. We're from that area. And at the end of that, they had agencies there that picked the kids that they wanted to work with. So he got an agent. And then how I fell into it, he was in Dynasty back in the day, which he was Little Blake in that. He was in Lois and Clark's Superman. He did a lot of work. But I would go to his agency's Christmas parties at Chuck E. Cheese, right? And they would throw them there. And
aren't those things so creepy? As an adult, when you see the mouse and
animatronics?
stuff, yeah, they're so creepy. Anyway, side note.
Oh man, the horrors that we put into children's minds, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like that's where every parent takes their kid, like when they're going through a divorce too. Is like Chuck E. Cheese. They're already like dealing with trauma. Now they got
Such
the
imagery
animatronic robot looking
Their
mice.
dreams are just ruined for
It's
years.
terrible.
So at those parties, I was a really high energy kid. I used to be pretty cute too as a kid. Like I was really blonde and like a little bit longer hair and everything. And so just my personality type, the agent felt that I would really fit well with it. And so we gave it a shot. I think every one of my siblings tried out acting with the agency that we had when I was a kid. But only my brother Brandon and I really enjoyed it and didn't mind. Like we lived an hour from LA. And so there were times as a kid that I'd be auditioning 5 days a week.
Oh, wow.
Right. So I'd get pulled out of school a little early, or the audition, we'd have to leave immediately when school ended. And so I'd be driving for an hour into LA and then 2 hours home with traffic. Right. And so it took a lot of time, but I didn't mind. I had a good imagination. So I just make up all sorts of stuff in the car. But I did have a real passion and desire to like invent a teleportation device because it would have saved me a lot of time as a child.
Elon Musk is working on one of those as we speak, I think, getting in and out of LA, the underground tunnel or whatever.
The boring.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so was Dumb and Dumber your first role, or you done work before that?
I had started when I was 5.
Oh, wow.
When Dumb and Dumber I filmed, I was 10. And so I had worked a lot before Dumb and Dumber. The first thing I ever did was a reading promo with Fred Savage and Dana Delany. So one of the more you know type things. That was my very first job. And
Fred Savage, the Wonder Years.
Yes.
Dude,
yeah, Wonder Year Fred
there
Savage.
was one of my friends had an autographed photo from him. It said, "May all yours be Wonder Years, Fred Savage." And I thought that was the greatest autograph signature line I've ever seen.
Fantastic. Go Fred. If
So
you
you
listen
were,
to this,
so you were
Great
voiceover
job.
for Fred Savage, or voice.
I was in the reading promo episode,
it.
right? I was like the kid they were reading to in it or something. Then the first like speaking role I had was in Doogie Howser. So Doogie Howser, I had to get a shot at the hospital, right? And I was scared to get the shot, so he related the shot to a silver arrow from Zelda, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you have to have your silver arrows to go forth and kill the boss, right? And so he motivated me and helped me to get my shot. But I had a speech impediment, so watching it back now, it's pretty cute.
I bet.
What was the line? It's, "You go forward. You got to save the princess." Right? But it was pretty cute.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
We're gonna make you do the react the Pretty Bird here in a minute. But,
Absolutely.
So you get the deal with Dumb and Dumber, and you're on the set. Did you meet Jim Carrey at that time as a 10-year-old?
I did, yeah. So in auditioning for Dumb and Dumber, the first audition was just casting director and a camera. And then the callback, which when you're auditioning, you can have multiple callbacks. This was a smaller role, so it was just one callback. And I went straight to the directors and the producers. So with the Farrelly brothers and all the producers of the film. And I remember that when I signed in, it was only one other kid that had been there already. So I knew it was like, that's a good sign, right?
Yeah.
If it's just a couple people they're bringing in for the role. And then when they brought me into the room, it was like 8 or 9 people in the room that I was reading with. And as I did it, right, they just fed the line before, and I just do the Pretty Bird line, right? And because I was a kind of adorable little kid, like they were just dying laughing in that room. Like they were out of control, hysterically laughing at it because they understood the context better than I did, right?
Did you know you were blind in the scene?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had to do the like unfocus your eyes thing. And, you kind of look at people, but not directly. And so my mom coached me on that. She was a pretty good coach too.
Nice.
For acting. But I knew like because of their reaction, it was kind of like a sweet, like this is a for sure thing. And then on the set though, it was filmed in Salt Lake.
Yeah, I knew
My
that
scene
half the
was.
film was filmed in Salt Lake, right?
Yeah.
So did you actually film in Utah for that part?
I did.
And you were
Yes,
living
they
in
flew us
California
up.
at the time, though.
Yeah,
Okay.
they flew us up here, but we had tons of family up here, so it was nice. But that scene was in like downtown Salt Lake with an apartment building, and it was an okay area, but it was filming that day. I didn't work with Jim Carrey, right? Joe Mental and
He's the big mafia guy.
Yeah, the mafia guy,
Yeah.
and then what's that girl's name? She was doing well for herself at that time too.
Yeah,
the sidekick of Joe Mental. They were the ones in the scene with me, but I remember filming it. They had me do a couple takes. Once they got it, they just said, "Okay, just like do whatever you want this time." And so in it, at the very end of it, right before it cuts, I say, "Polly, want a cracker?" That was improvised. That was all me.
Wow, that's good.
That wasn't in the script. So.
That's one of the
For a 10-year-old, that's
one of the
not bad
funnier
improv,
parts
right?
of it. Yeah, that's the funny part of it. Well, it's so funny because I mean his head is like literally duct taped on. Was it just like a fake bird that they had kind of?
It's
worked
wire
with?
and feathers.
Yeah.
I wish I had like pushed to keep the bird because that would have been
that would be a nice
awesome,
little movie
right? Memento. Yeah. A good memento to have. But but it was fun just working with the Farrelly brothers too, and at that time for them too, they were on fire with their films that they were doing.
Oh yeah,
But
that was
meeting Jim. Since I didn't work with him, I saw him do one scene, which was when they run out and the guy's like peeing in the background on the wall. You know that part? I saw that one scene was all where they climb out the window. That's the only thing I saw them shoot. But they took me to his trailer to meet Jim Carrey. And when I met Jeff Daniels first, and as a kid, like arachnophobia didn't really resonate with me, you know? So I was just like, okay, cool. It's nice to meet you. He's just another guy,
yeah,
like
sure.
an actor guy, where I respect him a ton now as an adult. But meeting Jim, so we went to his trailer, knock on the trailer door, and he opens it, and there's Jim Carrey, right? Who at my time is an idol. And I'm a 10-year-old kid, and I completely froze. Like my jaw must have been dropped, and I'm just like, and he's asking me questions, being really polite. I don't remember a thing he said. My mom did like all the talking for me. I was just more like awestruck by meeting Jim Carrey that first time around. So if I could go back, I would live that a little differently. But regardless, it was a pretty awesome moment.
Dude, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
So how often as a kid, I mean, a movie comes out, huge success, right? Like everybody just dies laughing. How often did people come up to you and ask, are you the blind kid from Dumb and Dumber? Did that happen a lot?
It didn't happen that much. I think because it's a smaller role too,
Sure.
right? In that way.
It's such a memorable role though, right? It's like, it's such a small role, but it is one of the most memorable scenes of the entire movie. In fact, I mean, they had you come back in the sequel. We'll get into that, but...
So as far as like being recognized, it didn't happen very often. But as far as like so I would always have friends and
introducing you as...
Oh my gosh.
Was it a good little party
And
favor, a little intro to the women?
Completely, yeah. I went to EFY 4 years here, or 3 years here at BYU, and it was like, I would always come being like, I'm not even going to bring it up, but the guy I would come with would tell everyone in my group. And then by the end of the thing, I've never felt more like a celebrity than being at EFY and being in the MTC.
I bet.
So going on my mission, I was like determined, like, I don't want to make this about that at all, right? Like I'm doing this for a different reason. But my brother, Dustin, worked at the MTC, and he had told my entire district before I got there that I was. And so then like the whole thing was just like taking pictures with people, and it's like, okay. Like,
well, I remember
even
so that's where I knew how we got connected, is your brother and I served a mission together in Monterey. And it's funny because I was first like one of the first things I knew about your brother was his brother is the blind kid in Dumb and Dumber, which is kind of funny. So
well, it is like, it's a Mormon cult classic.
For sure.
Like and for good reason, like, because it's just like edgy enough, but it's not. It's not pushing the line.
You can
too
have
much
it
as
on
far as
with your
comedy
parents in
goes.
the room and not be embarrassed about it.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. And so to this day, like particularly with my LDS friends or people that I meet, like it's one of those movies, man, where And I appreciate that too. So when I do meet people and they find out I'm the blind kid, like for a time as a teenager, I was like, just leave me alone. Like, come on, like I don't care about this anymore. But I love the movie so much too. I have it memorized. I've seen it so many times, right? Like I could quote scenes word for word. And so I get like how exciting that can be and how cool that is for people too, because it's such a classic movie. And then even though I have like 2 lines, it's a small role, it's such a memorable part. Like
it is. It's one of those parts of the movie you just can't forget. Did they, what does a kid get paid at 10 years old for a scene like that?
I think it was SAG minimum.
Got it.
So it was a couple days of work, because filming one day, but then the flights and other things like that. So a few $1,000s. Yeah. And then over the years though, I get residual checks, right? For everything.
Oh, you still get some residual checks for that?
Yeah.
That's nice.
So I always get, it's not a ton, because I haven't worked in not too much professionally acting in a decade or so. But even still, like my residuals will range from a penny. Like I get a check in the mail for a penny for things that I did.
Somebody bought a DVD.
Exactly. To Dumb and Dumber is one of the ones that pays a little bit more still, because it shows so much on TV still. And so I'll get every like 6 months, I'll get $300 or $400 from Dumb and Dumber, which is like
kind of cool.
Yeah, it's like, hey, cool. Like,
well, it's funny. I have a friend that's he's close friends with Matthew Perry from Friends, you know?
Yeah. Oh,
and
man.
he literally still gets millions of dollars a year just from the recurring revenue of Friends. He hasn't, it's been 15 years since it was on the air, but that's one of those things that once you put something out there, something that works like that, you're getting a residual for the rest of your life. One of the perks of being an actor.
Jerry Seinfeld, I think, was the first actor to make over $1 billion in residuals.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
But the more you make when you initially film, so because with those shows, they were getting $1 million an episode, right? So the more you make in that, it's also negotiated in the contract that you get more on the residual side forward. Too.
No, percentage of kind of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, and so the sequel started, rumors started flying. There was going to be a sequel.
Yeah.
How did you get involved? Did they reach out to you? Just wanted to bring you back in? You were in the script, obviously.
Yeah. So I didn't have an agent at the time, because just life took me in a different direction. And so I had heard the sequel was coming out, right? I had tweeted the Farrelly brothers a couple times just to like, come on, write me and like do something, right? Like it'd be awesome to be in a sequel. And then what ended up happening though was casting reached out to me on Facebook. They Facebook messaged me, and it was in like my other inbox in Facebook. You know how Facebook has
it's like the ones of
messages
people that you don't know.
And like how often do you really check those? So like I was really lucky that I did check my other inbox for some reason, and had found they had messaged me only a few days before, and so it was through that I coordinated with them. They had me come in and audition for the role still, because
if you can't,
it had been 20 years. Right?
Anybody technically could be the Billy and Forsey at this age, right?
And there's more lines too in the sequel, and I could have been a crackhead. Like you never know, especially with a child actor, right? So fortunately, life didn't take me down that path, and so I went in for the audition in LA with the Farrelly brothers and a couple of the producers, and they were. Peter Farrelly told me later that they had it lined up to still cast for it too, even after, just to play it safe. But I went in and I did the scenes. It went really well. Like I could tell they liked it. I was kind of determined to leave, like knowing that I had the part though, which doesn't often happen in auditioning situations, right? But like I was like, come on, like I am the blind kid, like come on, like this has followed me my whole life, don't like take that away from me, you know. And so afterward we talked for a little bit. I asked him when it was going to be filming, and it was only a few weeks out, and then my parting words to them was, well, just so you know, I don't know anyone who plays me better than I do, right?
That's good.
What was it? I don't know anyone. Yeah, I think that was.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. I don't know anyone who knows how to play me better than I do. And so they were laughing about that. I walked out and I got to the sidewalk, and the casting director ran out and had me come back in, and they told me that they wanted me. So,
awesome.
So yeah, I got the confirmation that day. It was nice.
Well, and so I mean, that movie, by the way, Dumb and Dumber 2 was hilarious. Like, I don't think it got the respect that it deserved. Like, it's really funny. If you haven't seen it, by the way, the sequel, it's really good.
Yeah,
that's my opinion.
Me too. Like, there's plenty of laugh out loud.
Yeah,
moments.
It's
not as subtle as the first movie.
Correct.
So I think there was more subtle humor in the first movie and more like quotable lines from the first one, right? Which is what
like
made
when he's
it such
walking
a classic.
past somebody coming out of the gas station, just randomly like, big gulps, huh? Well, see you later. Or just tosses the salt over his shoulder and you hear like, what the hell? You know, it's very subtle humor. You're right. Yeah.
So in the sequel, there's more like in your face humor moments, but there's some really funny stuff. And like, I think the first half of the sequel is really great comedy. Yeah. The second half, they're trying to like bring the story together, and it gets a little convoluted, I think.
Well, that's kind of a lot of comedies, right? They have so many jokes written in, so they know they have something. It's like there's a movie Envy with Jack Black. The first 35 minutes is just fall on the floor laughing, but then the rest of the movie just is completely derails. It's just awful.
Yeah, and they're just trying to get to an end of the movie in a way.
Yeah, we need the minimum
But the train scene in the sequel of Dumb and Dumber. Do you remember the train scene? I'm not going to give it away.
No, well, go ahead. I mean, everyone. It's been 5 years. I think
it has been 5 years.
Spoiler alert! Right? Turn it off if you want.
Spoiler alert. Fast forward like 45 seconds. So it's the scene when he lights the firework in the car, and so they get out and they can't hear anything, and then the car with the bad guy that's planning on killing them gets hit by a train and they don't hear any of it. I was dying laughing in that scene. Like, it is so funny. What a great idea.
Yeah, no, I remember laughing. I went into the movie almost like you had so much respect for the original that you almost didn't want there to be a sequel. You're like, oh, can we do this? Like, is it going to be okay? And then I remember walking out like so happy that it was actually good. It was like the Christmas Vacation.
It's worthy of it, right?
Yeah.
It's worthy of the original. I think it's impossible to compare it to the original.
Yeah, if you try, and it's literally like the best comedy
exactly.
ever written. Right?
Yeah. But I think they did a great job, and they pulled it off. So
through that experience as an adult, did you get to meet Jim Carrey again? And did you get to redeem yourself for your original?
I did a little bit more. So my scene was filmed on the first and second day of filming for the sequel. So I was there like right as everyone was kind of like re-gelling and getting things together. And so we filmed. It was the day after the Emmys, when Jeff Daniels won Best Actor.
Oh, for Network or?
Newsroom.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
which is phenomenal.
Yeah,
also.
Yeah.
And so he had just won the Emmy and flew straight from LA, winning the Emmy, to be Harry Dunn.
Wow.
Dunn, right? Like, talk about a contrast in roles. But working with them like the second time was really phenomenal. Particularly Jeff Daniels.
I was gonna say,
he is.
I feel like he should have done more comedies. He was so good in Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal human. Like,
he's
just a really good human being. So just a couple of things that I noticed while I was there. Like, Jeff Daniels rode in the same van that all of us rode in to get from like where the trailers were to where we were filming. Right. It was filmed in Georgia.
Okay.
And they recreated like a one-to-one model of the apartment complex, because it's at the same apartment complex technically. And so in filming with them, though, I rode with Jeff there. I was there for the moment when Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels like first reunited, which is pretty awesome.
Did they keep a friendship over the years, did it seem?
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah, not friends. I'm sure, just like kind of keeping in touch. But yeah, it was really like probably the first time they've seen each other in 20 years.
Wow,
right?
very cool.
And so that was cool, just like to see them like hugging. Our scene was the first scene that they filmed together, right? So Jim Carrey goes and he hugs Jeff Daniels really big, and then he turns and he looks at me and he's like, and they say, "Oh, this is Brady. He's the blind kid from the original." He's like, "No way!" He's like, "I'm so glad you're not dead." Right? And
that's awesome.
Yeah, and so working with them this time was so much. It was a different experience, right? Being an adult and being on set, and it was really fun to like play off of them and actually be engaged in how the scene's going to be working.
But you have a lot more lines in the sequel.
Yeah, a lot more dialogue, and so it was all scripted out. That ending thing, though, we did come up with on set, right? Where the end of that scene where they come into the side of me like that and like screaming my
that
voice.
wasn't originally in the script.
And one of the things we had to do, so I was playing the role a little bit more innocent still in the way that like I did the first time, right? But the Fairley brothers actually had me shift a little bit to have a little bit more like of anger towards Jim Carrey.
More edge,
a little more edge towards it, because otherwise, when I was playing it too innocent, it came off like they were bullying me, and it didn't feel right. It didn't have the right feel to it. But yeah, it was fun. Jeff Daniels, though, I was able to connect with him a lot, and he's just such a cool guy. He has this mini the portable foldable guitars, because he's a musician. He writes music and he plays out also all over the place. And in the green room, he just had his guitar out, and his son was there too, actually. So I just got to like chat with him and his son for a long time. I talked with him a lot about Newsroom, and in particular, one scene in Newsroom where he finds out on the air that his father passed away, his character's father passed away. Come to find out, a year before that, his father had really passed away. And so they wrote that in for that. And he was just telling me, like, there were multiple takes, and they went with the dry take, but the other take that they almost went with, he was just bawling, just like complete emotional release. And he's just like he's such a good person, man.
Yeah, I think you can kind of get that feel from him as you watch him as an actor. Like every single movie he's in, he has an energy that is just very attractive.
Yeah,
right? It's very attractive.
Absolutely. Energy. After we did our rehearsal, driving back, Jeff and I hopped into Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey had like a driver and his own like black Escalade, right? And so we hopped into his car to drive back to the trailers. And he was like kicking ideas around with Jeff Daniels and me about like ways he wanted to bring back Seabass, right?
I think
and Seabass wasn't in the script.
No,
okay. And so the original idea, the idea he was thinking of, is pretty funny.
Well, go ahead, share. That's kind of the fun little part of hearing these stories, right?
Yeah. So Seabass did get brought back at the very end, the credit sequence, right? But what Jim Carrey was thinking of doing was kind of recreating a similar type of moment where he like goes into a bathroom, right? And he sees like the, meet me here kind of thing. And you expect it to be Seabass, but it's not Seabass. It's a younger guy, right? And then, and Jim Carrey would like find his way to like get out of it or whatever. But then the next shot would be that guy getting into the passenger seat of a truck, and it would be Seabass in the driver's seat saying like, "What took you so long?" And he's like, "Oh, I was just trying to get with a guy in the men's restroom," or something like that. So it wasn't fully developed and it didn't make it in there. But kind of a funny little idea. At least. He really wanted to get Seabass back. I think they had stayed friends a little bit.
That's cool
too. So
that's one of the other. I mean, I would say you and Seabass probably the two most notable characters
for just like
besides the main character,
a guest star,
right?
Type of role. Yeah.
So what was your? I mean, because everyone has kind of a favorite scene from Dumb and Dumber. What was your favorite part of the movie, minus your own parts, I guess?
Oh man, that is a good question.
For me, I think the part you asked me what part put me on the floor. I think it was when he hits her in the face with the snowball.
Yes,
I think that was the scene.
That whole sequence,
and it's so like unexpected. You're just like, oh my gosh, this is so good.
So that's the difference, like with Dumb and Dumber 1 compared to 2. Like all the driving and travel stuff is hilarious. Mm-hmm. There's so many just like, I'm running at an incredible rate, Harry. Right? There's so many just funny, quotable and usable things in daily life in the first movie. But then when they got to Aspen, the movie actually escalated, right? Like it actually got better rather than just like trying to tie up loose ends. It actually like made it even more. What was I?
No, you're fine. Did you think I asked kind
Did
of
you
your
know the
favorite?
landed on the moon thing was improv?
Oh, it
from
was.
Jim Carrey?
He just saw that on the side of
It was just in the bar that they were filming in, and one of the takes,
One of
as
the
he's
best
walking
signs.
out, he stops and he goes, "No way, that's great, landed on the moon!" And like, so genius.
It's hysterical.
Genius.
That's one of the best lines of the whole movie.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how come you think the sequel? Because I think the sequel just didn't. Obviously, it never took off like the original or whatever. But do you think it's kind of a little bit darker humor? Do you think that maybe that was that Jim Carrey's maybe because he's kind of gone that route a little bit more. He was more goofy back then.
A little bit more. I think comedy's changed a lot since the 90s too, right?
Yeah, comedy in general isn't as goofy as it was then, right?
Right. Yeah. Where in the 90s it was just like this slapstick.
Well, I mean, it was Tommy Boy,
Look at
Dumb and Dumber, and Billy
Which
Madison.
my voice is in Tommy Boy actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And what part?
I did for all through my teenage years. I did background voiceover work, so ADR work. So my voice is in a ton of 90s movies. But just the background. So it's whenever there are extras in a scene, or if you're like in a baseball stadium, or like the fair where they have like the Ferris wheel and he pees on the fence in Tommy Boy, right?
Yeah.
So just the background voices of people there. They hire actors to come in and do the voicing for the entire movie in the background.
Wow, you're literally in both of my favorite two comedies of all time. That's pretty good.
They're two of mine too, man. Chris Farley.
I know, right?
It's that guy.
Can you believe it's been because he died in '97?
Yeah.
I mean,
did you see the tribute Adam Sandler?
I did. Yeah. So me and my friends actually started the Chris Farley fan club when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And then he died, and we were like, I mean, the guy's dead. There's only so much.
Are you
new
still
material.
the head of the Chris
We
Farley?
are. Well, I think so. It's when he got a star in Hollywood in like 2004.
Yeah.
They had me and my buddies come out.
Really?
Yeah. So we got
That's
to
awesome.
go to the bowling alley with all of the. It was like Adam Sandler, Chris Rock, David Spade, Tom Arnold, Gary Busey was there.
Yeah.
His family was there, and then like the Paramount guys were there, and. Yeah, so it's kind of funny. So we actually have this tie to Chris Farley. I mean, literally, like me and my buddies, we just bonded over, Tommy Boy, Dumb and Dumber, like Ace Ventura, these movies.
Amen.
That was like the youth of anybody in their mid-30s now is like, that was their youth, right?
Yes.
Is those movies.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, before we let you go, you gotta reenact the scene here for us. So
Okay.
I'm gonna need you to just give us the lines.
I'll do the two things that I still do on a regular basis for people, because things I'm known for are Dumb and Dumber, the blind kid, and then the voice of Christopher Robin in Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, so you
I
were
did
the
that
voice
for
of...
7 years for Disney.
Wow.
So yeah, I'll do both of those. But here we go. Ready? Pretty bird, pretty bird. Polly want a cracker? Pretty bird. Yes, can you say pretty bird? Aw, you're such a pretty birdie. I think that's the whole line. And then
That's
the other
pretty
one
good.
too, though. So I just thought he was real quiet. Right? The
I can hear it. I hear it, dude. That's pretty good. Dude, I love it, man.
Yeah.
It's such a pleasure. Well, thank you so much. I think this will be a fun little episode for our audience. And just
Absolutely.
a pleasure, dude. And
happy to be here.
Congrats on
Great to connect.
being Billy and Force. Oh, by the way, how funny in the sequel
My life
comes
peaked
out.
when I was 11 years old, Like, how
It's
do
a
I
good
go
peak,
up
though.
from there? It is.
You know what's fun about the sequel is you find out that his name's not Billy in 4C. It's Billy in 4C, the apartment 4C. It's one of my favorite parts of the sequel.
Often people thought that it was Enforcey is the last name.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Billy
yeah.
Enforcey, but it's Billy the blind boy in apartment 4C. It's like the technical name.
Dude, I love it, man. Thanks again, dude.
Yeah, you're welcome.